Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I haven't done a Variax video in really quite a while. Life gets busy and the occasional gig out actually using the Variax has kept things pretty interesting. So thought it was long overdue to sit down and talk about Variax again. And kind of what I wanted to touch on today is 2022, should I still think about buying a Variax? They've been out for a little while. It's not the brand new tech on the block. But does that mean that it's not still a very viable option again in 2022? So I wanted to start really quickly. For anyone that is new to Variax, just a really brief kind of history of the Variax. The original 500 model was launched in 2002. What it had was basically all the models that are available now. It had two custom makes where you could save your own combination of sounds if you wanted part Strat, part Tele, part Les Paul, whatever it was you wanted. Everything was done on the guitar. There was not access to any alt tuning. There was no Workbench software, so you could not go in and customize anything. Then in 2005, they expanded the line. There was the 300 model, which actually was my introduction to Variax. That was the first one I bought. It was placed in more of the budget category. It was a $500 retail guitar. There's also the 600, which was slightly better components, added a tremolo, and then there was the 700 model, which was a nice kind of carved top, really high-end, well-built guitar. So basically, it gave people options on how they wanted to get into the Variax world, if they wanted, a really nice high-end guitar, or if they just wanted to dabble in it, which is where I started. What got me into Variax in particular was the addition of Workbench, where you could go in, customize your guitars, and to me, most importantly, you now had access to do alt tunings. At the time, I had been running a Roland VG88, which could do all of that stuff, but you had to have the GK3 pickup. You had to run a 13-pin cable. That system didn't have a lot of real-time control unless you assigned it to pedals. You couldn't, unlike Variax, you couldn't just flip pickup switches, and it was more, it worked for the time, but it was more cumbersome. Variax solved all those problems for me. Then in 2010, the James Tyler Variax line launched, which is still available today. It's what I'm using. I have the 69 and 59 model, which is more the Les Paul and Strat type. Then in 2013, they redid the firmware to the HD firmware. The Workbench software also got an update to Workbench HD, giving you more options. You now could separate the tuning from the model. In the older versions, you just had to save the tuning in whatever model you had. So the way I had my particular Variax set up when I had like the 300 and the 600 model is that I would have kind of my, favorite guitar setup, which might be like a Strat neck, a Strat in between, a Les Paul bridge, whatever 5 positions I liked the most, which honestly is still how I pretty well use the Variax. What I would do is I would duplicate that in different positions on the knob and change tunings where like this is a capo up 2 frets, drop D. So I ended up eating up a lot of my banks with the same type of sounds, just in different tunings. So when the JTV came along, it separated those two, where you had, processing dedicated to the alt tuning part, and then you could do the guitar sounds and processing separately, which is actually part of JTV from the start. But in the once Workbench HD came out, it just gave you more options, and again, a new firmware. Since then, there have been the Shuriken model, and then once Line 6 and Yamaha merged, they did the standard model, which is basically a Pacifica-style Yamaha guitar with Variax. From the HD firmware on, everything has been the same in terms of sounds, features, and electronics. So it really comes down to what physical guitar feels right to you. So that's the history of Variax. So since 2013, there's not been a significant upgrade to the firmware. We still have basically the same JTV models from 2010. So that's why, I thought it was worth asking the question. Here we are, 12 years on after the JTVs were introduced, and 9 years on since the last firmware version was introduced. And we all know technology, things change fast. Do we still have something that's worth looking at? So my personal opinion is yes, I still use the Variax pretty much exclusively when I play and for the most part in the studio. Just to break it down in terms of pros and cons, the pros would be, you get a wide range of sounds, everything from Fender, Gibson, Gretsch. You can also do acoustic, banjo, all kinds of different sitar, like just all kinds of different sounds. So you have a wide array of sounds. You have both acoustic and electric instruments. Particularly, and Helix integration is another one of the features, and particularly using Helix integration. I do this all the time. You can use snapshots and the way you set your patch up to do acoustic and electric in the same song. One song that comes to mind, The Who's Who Are You? There's an acoustic section in the middle. The rest of it is very big, loud, Les Paul, they're a Highwater or Marshall. Very easy to do all of that with Variax and Helix with just clicking through snapshots. So, the other thing, again, I mentioned earlier, that's a big thing to me is the alt tuning or the custom tuning you can do. I do quite a bit of that, switching from standard to drop D or an open E. I also like moving things around. I've been in bands where all of a sudden we want to change a key from B to B flat or E to E flat. Rather than having to transpose on the fly or update my charts, I just flip it to E flat, flip it to whatever the tuning needs to change to. And it works great. Or if there's a song I'm playing in open G and then the solo comes up and I don't want to solo in open G, I want to solo in standard, no problem. I just click a button on Helix and away I go. So to me, that just really, and particularly live, that is just an amazing setup that really, to my knowledge, you can't get that type of performance integration with anything else on the market. So the Variax still stands as a very unique place, in the market segment that it really kind of stands alone. There's nothing truly that has really ever competed with it. Roland and Fender did a V-Strat years ago, but it didn't reach the level of, I think, true integration of the Variax in that, it just feels like a guitar. All the controls are like a regular guitar in terms of pickup selection, volume, tone. There's no special, hoops you have to jump through. So that's all the pros in my mind. That's why I play Variax. The cons would be, we are looking at nearly, just considering this firmware, nearly a decade old software, and even the technology itself is even older than that. To be honest, some models to my ears sound better than others. I don't own or haven't played every single model that's in the Variax. So in some cases, I'm not speaking from the experience of having the actual guitar. So maybe the models are spot on, but just to my ears, certain models work better than others. And again, while the pitch shifting is my probably go-to, as they would say, like the part that's just critical to me, like, that I have to have. There are limitations to some degree with the pitch shifting. If you shift, say, 7 or 8 frets up the neck, you're going to hear a little bit of what I would describe as a warble. Like you can hear a little bit of artifacts. In a live setting, not that big a deal, to be honest. I've done like Hotel California, which starts with an acoustic sound or 12-string acoustic sound on the 7th fret, and then the rest is played in the open position with an electric guitar, through an amp. Live, it works great for that. Honestly, and it's a little bit lucky it worked that way, but I can use a regular acoustic sound, and with it transposed that far up, the little bit of warble actually kind of gives a little bit of a 12-string sound. So I get to cheat a little bit on that one. But that being said, if you push the limits, you do hear a little bit. To my ears, plus minus 2 to 3 frets is in terms of shifting. So 2 to 3 semitones is pretty darn convincing. I don't feel there's no latency. I don't feel any latency. there's been discussions about this on groups and forums. The way the engineers designed it's really quite amazing. There's no real latency there, um, but keep that in mind. If you want to do very wide intervals, you may get a little bit extra sound you weren't thinking you were going to get. The other thing is the technology is only available in the Variax guitars. Over the years, a lot of folks have wanted and requested the ability to buy just the circuit board, the electronics, the guts, if you will, of a Variax to be able to put them in their own guitars. This is something Line 6 has never offered. I doubt they ever will. I think it sounds good in theory. In practice, I think it would be a bit of a pain. There's something to the integration, and actually each board, for whether it be the 59, 69 Shuriken standard, each board has some slight EQ tweaks, from my understanding, what I've seen discussed in the groups. So each board is specifically designed for the body it's in. So it just kind of is what it is. Now, I think there's, between the JTV and Shuriken and standard, I think there's a great range of different types of guitars. If you want a more Strat feel, if you want more of the shredder, the JTV 89 has a great, nice flat fretboard, very fast to play. So, can you put it in your favorite guitar? No, but I think the Variax guitars offer some really great guitars that play well, feel well. They're quality instruments. So while that's a con, to me, that's never really been that big of a deal. But that's really, trying to think of the negatives, that's about all I can think of. And to me, there's nothing on the cons list that is in any way a deal breaker. The other question that I hear on the groups that is worth talking about is, it's been out for a while. Instead of buying one now, should I wait on a new generation of Variax to come out? I don't have any inside information. I don't work for Line 6. I'm just a huge fan of Variax and Helix. I haven't heard, sometimes rumors will float around in, Facebook or forums or anything. I haven't personally heard anything that would convince me that anything new is going to be coming out soon. A lot of people really want to see Line 6 put the Variax guts into a Yamaha Revstar. I would be a buyer if that happened. I would love it. But I'm not holding my breath. I haven't really heard any rumblings that's going to happen anytime soon. I know we just went through the COVID pandemic, and there's chip shortages, and people had to work remotely, and all these other stresses that came on that, like any other company, Line 6 was affected, I'm sure. So, that probably didn't help in terms of new product development. Helix is sort of their bread and butter. So I'm sure they've devoted their resources where the money's being made. Again, that's my guess. I don't work there. They're on the other side of the country. I don't know, but that seems logical to me. So all that to say, if you want a Variax, I would get a Variax. I think even in 2022, some 12 years after, the JTV line was launched, some 20 years after the original Variax was launched, I still think there's nothing on the market that matches it. I think it's a fantastic instrument. It's all I play, pretty much. You can see behind me, I've got it. There's a Fender and a Gibson hanging on the wall, and that's pretty well where they stay. I dust them every now and then, but I don't remember the last time I actually played them. Great guitars, but when I can have everything in one guitar, it's hard not to want to pick up the Variax. So those are just my thoughts on it. Your mileage may vary. If you're thinking about a Variax, and if you can get a hold of one to try out, if you can find them in a local music store or an online retailer that has a good return policy where you don't feel like there's big risk, you might get it and decide if you want it or want to send it back at very little to no risk to you. So if you're thinking about it, I say go for it. Last thing, shameless plug. I do have some bundles of presets for Variax on the Line 6 marketplace. Actually, this month makes 2 years those have been up. I have gotten extremely good feedback. People have really enjoyed the models. Basically, there's the tweaked bundle I have, which is basically I went through the entire stock banks of models and just tweaked everything, start to finish. And that's it's not. I don't want to go so far as to say that's the equivalent of a new firmware update, because it's not a firmware update, but the HD firmware came out in 13. This is the closest thing to an update that there is, in my opinion. Then I have also, there's an everything bundle on there, which is the complete bundle. And then literally, I think over 400 custom models, those things like a Les Paul body with a Tele set of pickups, or a Strat set of pickups, or a 12-string Les Paul. And then those types of variations on all, lots and lots of the guitar models, Strats with Les Paul setups, or Strats with Tele setups, and all that sort of stuff. So if you want to have, almost every option at your fingertips, that everything bundle is really cool. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check those out. I've also got a playlist on my channel of Variax tutorials. I'll put a link to that also in the description below. It talks about the difference in the Variax models. I've got several videos talking about how to dive into Workbench and customize things and get things kind of more set up to your liking if the stock models don't tickle your fancy. Again, if you do have a Variax, I think it's worth checking out some of the tweaks and mods I've done that I think help you get even more out of what's available already. So that's my opinion. Summing up, I think if you want a Variax in 2022, it is still very much a yes for me to recommend. I recommend them to anybody that'll listen. I've had friends get them and have very much enjoyed them. So anyway, I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions about Variax, please put them in the comments below. Always happy to talk about Variax. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. There's more Variax content you want to see. Just throw me a comment down below. Let me know what it is you want me to talk about or demonstrate or anything of that nature. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.